You're listening to Served Up, a podcast that features inspiring beverage professionals and topic experts that share their passions through meaningful conversations. I'm your host, Bridget Albert, also known as the Market Fresh Mixologist, an industry mentor with decades of experience. Grab a cocktail and sit back. Let's learn how we can make a positive impact in our industry. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. Today we are honored to welcome a truly inspiring advocate for equality and inclusion, Katie Blair. Katie is the Vice President of Advocacy at PFLAG National. Katie brings deep passion and purpose to her role, championing the rights of LGBTQ+ people and families with a clear message: lead with love. Her tireless work includes standing firmly in support of trans youth across the country, advocating for dignity, respect, and safety at every level of policy and community life. Co-hosting this important conversation is someone who brings both charisma and expertise, Mr. Kyle McHugh. Kyle is a celebrated professional in the beverage world and a powerful voice for LGBTQ+ representation and hospitality. Kyle's work blends creativity and community impact, making him the perfect partner for today's dialogue on advocacy, identity, and inclusion. Together, Katie and Kyle will dive into what it means to show up for queer families, how we can all be better allies, and why now more than ever, leading with love matters the most. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's powerful and impactful conversation. Katie, welcome to Served Up. Kyle and I are really happy to have you on the show today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right in, as we love to do. Can you talk about how we can keep the LGBTQ+ and youth and their families connected and supported in all areas where they don't feel isolated or unsafe through some of the efforts of PFLAG?
Yeah, of course. Well, PFLAG National is the nation's largest and oldest organization supporting LGBTQ+ people and those who love them. We have 350 chapters across the country. We have online communities and 550,000 supporters. And those numbers are growing with everything going on. We've seen a spike in interest with people wanting to get involved with PFLAG. We support folks through education, advocacy, and providing direct support. So I encourage people to look up their local PFLAG chapter, join a meeting, join one of our online communities. Those are for everyone, not just parents and family members. Anyone who is an ally to the LGBTQ+ community or LGBTQ+ folks themselves are welcomed and encouraged to join those to really find community right now. We also have educational tools that give folks the information they need to be a good ally. We have things like how to tell your story, social media best practices, because so much happens on social media. We have trainings called PFLAG Academy Online that covers a broad swath of issues. We also have a program called Straight for Equality, which provides companies resources on how to best support LGBTQ folks, both on staff and in the broader community. It's an excellent program. Also, we provide advocacy opportunities. So we give folks trainings on how to best advocate for their LGBTQ+ loved ones, how to make their voice heard, both at the state house and at the national level. We also equip folks with different advocacy opportunities. So, when there's time to write a letter or call their representative, we're giving folks that information and pointing them in the right direction so they can be most effective. We also run campaigns like our Read with Love campaign that gives folks the tools they need to speak out at their local school board or library boards against book bans and school censorship. We plug folks into those opportunities. So we have a lot of different ways that folks can interface with PFLAG National. It really is what you're interested in.
That's amazing. It's such a treasure trove of resources that PFLAG has offered for so long. And it's great to hear that you're seeing numbers increasing, especially given the challenges we are seeing facing the LGBTQ plus communities at a national level, let alone the state and municipal levels, in ways that we haven't seen in a long time and maybe ever in some ways these days. Can you tell us how we have seen and what we're hearing from people coming to PFLAG, what they're coming for, like what's incentivizing them, given the climates that we're facing?
Yeah, we have folks that are scared. They're scared for themselves and their loved ones with all of the things that are happening at a federal level that also are trickling down and emboldening state legislatures to do things that are harmful to the community. So we have people that are here based on fear, needing support. We also have people that are fired up and ready to go, that want to take action and want to speak truth to power. And we have folks that are here to just learn a little bit more too. They're interested in becoming a better advocate, really helping their loved ones and their community through this time. So arming themselves with education is the best way for some people to do that.
That's really, really great information, Katie, and great actionable items. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. How is PFLAG adapting its advocacy strategy in response to the increasing number of anti-LGBTQ plus bills across the United States?
We work with our chapters and our supporters all across the country. You know, we've seen an avalanche of anti-LGBTQ bills. Every year we're seeing those now. Right now we have over 500 bills that have been introduced. I'm happy to say here that only 10% have been signed into law. We're still waiting to see what happens in states like Texas, where we're facing an unprecedented amount of anti-LGBTQ plus bills. But that's kind of where we are right now. How we're helping out at the state level is not only working with our networks, but also making sure that we lean on the people that are closest to this issue. We're leaning on our state partners. We have excellent relationships with state equality groups all across the country so that we don't come in and write a prescription for something that we don't know enough about. We want to know what people are facing on the ground and how we can best support them. So we work both with our own networks as well as state networks. And we, of course, are part of national coalitions that help drive this work on a local level as well.
As you're seeing all this legislation that's happening, again, at all levels, right? And we're seeing state legislation coming forward that's echoing national conversations. Probably there's some cart and horse, kind of wherever the attacks can happen, they're trying to lay that ground that can then have ramifications at other states or at the federal level, right? What do you see within the LGBTQ plus community, which is obviously a very diverse community within itself? Do you see specific groups being targeted more than others? Is it blanket? And what is PFLAG doing in order to help those of us who are staunch allies or those of us who are members of the communities to arm specifically for those unique fights that maybe are happening against members intra-community?
So right now we're seeing a targeting of transgender people, largely transgender youth, on their rights to, quite frankly, exist and to receive the healthcare that they deserve, to receive inclusive education, to be able to participate in school sports or using the restroom. So we're really seeing a targeting of that community. We have lawsuits in 3 states, Missouri, North Carolina, and Texas, on behalf of our members and families that are trying to access medical care for their transgender youth. And we've also joined a lawsuit at the national level to fight back with Trump's executive order that would also limit folks' access to trans healthcare for youth.
I'm so glad that PFLAG is, jumping in and standing up and doing the right thing. It's really, it's such a crazy time that we're living in. And it's really important to see that people are standing in and stepping up. How can we support the trans youth in states where their rights, like you said, are being rolled back? even if we live in more progressive areas, what can the average Joe do?
Right now, it's the most important thing is to show up and speak out. It is so dangerous to be trans right now with all of the targeted attacks via legislation and executive order. It's hard for folks to speak out. So it's really more important than ever for allies to be on the front lines. There is a space for you, even though you might not think it because you're not affected by the issue. This is the time to speak up. You can always stay tuned for any kind of actions that you can participate in, maybe even your state advocacy days where we're seeing the voices of allies and really being impactful with those state lawmakers, connecting on that human level and you being that validator for trans youth and the trans community. That is an excellent way to make your voice heard.
Can allies and others trying to fight the good fight, what tools does PFLAG offer in order for folks to have? Is it scripts to talk to legislators with? Is it, like action item checklists? Like what are some of the tools look like, and both for the fight for trans rights as well as any rights, any human rights that we're trying to make sure are not taken away that have been established or are still not yet established?
We have an amazing hub of resources on our advocacy page, pflag.org/join the fight, where we have, information on the issues that folks are facing, opportunities to take action, training on how to best be an advocate. We have a training for almost anything that you can think of. We have trainings for writing your lawmakers, for attending public meetings, for testifying, for writing a letter to the editor. Those are still really powerful tools. Even your protesters' rights, we've got a training for that. So that's a place that we can really, arm people with the information they need.
I'm so glad that you gave that direction because I think that that's a question that gets asked very often, or, people that are even curious that listen to this podcast that really want to take that moment to jump in, right? Mm-hmm. And to help in any way that they can. So listeners, I really hope that you're taking notes today because there's so much good knowledge being dropped over here. Can you talk about, is PFLAG developing new programming as well to help families navigate the current, political hostility?
Yes, of course we are. Not only do we have all of those resources I just listed, but with everything coming at us and coming at us so quickly, we're making sure that we're responsive with issue area explainers, opportunities to take action, and doing those in real people talk so folks can understand it. That's such an important thing to have during these times. We don't need lawyer talk. We don't need medical provider talk. We need real talk. And so we've been making sure that we're responsive. Like when the avalanche of executive orders came out, then we right away put up a webpage with all sorts of tools for you to really understand what's happening. So as things are moving, we are building and growing. In June, we expect the decision to come out for the U.S. versus Scrimeti, which is a case that would potentially uphold Tennessee's ban on gender affirming care for trans youth. With that, there are rallies being planned all across the country. Really, it's being led by the ACLU and Lambda Legal. I know that our chapters will be represented. So really be on the lookout for information there. We're also revamping our Read with Love campaign. That will be released in mid-October to coincide with Banned Books Week, a program that we've been closely involved with for a long time. So with our Read with Love campaign, what we'll be doing is really refreshing those resources on how to advocate at the school board and the library board level and how to bring those, all of those tools that I mentioned straight to your local level and make them fit for school boards and library boards.
I'm going to just add a follow-up question to that because, you mentioned banned books. And as an avid reader, I think that it is pathetic and horrible and frightening and all the words that we are still seeing books being banned in 2025. here at Served Up, we have even done, banned book drives and have donated back to like the Friends of the New Orleans public libraries, where the librarians are really the ones using their own pocket money to fund so many of these books. And I don't know if you know this or not, Kate, but librarians don't make a lot of money. So they really need our help.
What?
I know. It's so crazy. It's a crazy thing. And so, in your own personal view, can you give an exclamation, especially because this podcast is international and there might be some people that are not hip to the fact that here in the US, there's still books being banned. Can you explain to us why this is happening?
Yeah, we've seen a trend in books being banned and in classroom censorship over the last several years. With that, I think that there's really an effort for power and control over what we can read, what we can learn. And at PFLAG, we believe that students should have the opportunity to thrive and learn and grow. And these bans really halt those efforts and that healthy growth. With book bans, it's devastating to see what librarians and what teachers have been going through. And just like you said, they're under enough scrutiny with other legislation that's being passed that targets those professions. And so book bans are just kind of a tool in the toolbox of lawmakers to stifle our learning and growing.
You mentioned Lambda Legal, and they've been a friend of the show for some time. And, we've had efforts for the show for years of fighting against banned books and the conversation of limiting access to information as a means of control. Another means of control that we're seeing being applied constantly these days are attacks on the judiciary by a co-power of the government in our, triad of a government. We've never seen the executive branch attack the judiciary in the way that it is historically. Is there something that PFLAG has found, or is there a path forward that we're finding in order to help address the fact that so many of these decisions are being asked as emergency considerations, if not into the regular docket of the Supreme Court, and in some cases, flagrant disregard for federal court decisions being made by the current administration? And again, what can any of us do to help support the other branches of government in those attacks?
Well, while these efforts are devastating, they're not shocking, right? A lot of the things that have been promised to take place these days are coming into effect now. We're not a legal organization, but one thing that we are encouraging our folks to do is to talk to their elected officials, their members of Congress, where a lot of these things are being discussed, and really talk to them about taking action and speaking out on behalf of their communities. So I'm talking about attending those public meetings that we've seen so widely popping up across the country and doing that kind of direct reach out to the people that are supposed to represent them. And we're also making sure that our folks thank lawmakers that are doing the right thing. That is the PFLAG way. We lead with love. So when folks are doing something that reflects leading with love, we make sure that they hear a thank you from us. We know that, we can sit and yell from the mountaintops about how mad we are about certain things. And don't worry, we will. But it's so important to give people that support right now, those lawmakers that are really doing brave things during these times.
It's really great. Are there any safety protocols or like training resources that PFLAG offers their local chapters that are under the threat of, the hostile protests?
Our chapters receive information and training on safety and have their own safety protocols that they follow closely. The most important thing is to maintain a safe environment for the folks that are just trying to access those important support services or take part in a community event. Those are things that we hold very important.
Love to hear that. I'm thinking in the same way. Look, a lot of what we're talking about are things that we need to do now, and action is needed more than ever in the immediacy. We're talking about June 2025. As we're recording this, that's a few weeks away. As this will air, that will be now-ish, right? And so these are immediacy, but we're also facing a long game, right? There's a lot of folks who are trying to limit the rights of human beings who've been playing a game for decades. Without giving away too many state secrets of how we are countering that and what kind of a long game PFLAG is playing in order to protect human rights. Is there anything you can share with how we're thinking, not just 90 days, 60 days, 30 days down the road, but 1 year, 3 year, 5, 20 years down the road to make sure that we can enshrine the rights of people for perpetuity as best we can against future attacks like we're facing today?
Our foundation really in this are LGBTQ plus people belong, transgender people belong. I know that feels radical right now, but that is where we're moving. We want to make sure that that message comes across loud and clear. So we are building a long game. We're here, like I said, fighting, screaming from the rooftops when we need to, but we also have proactive reforms that we're working on and that we're making sure they see light. Maybe they won't pass, but we want to make sure that the conversation is, don't do this instead. And in some places, we are seeing proactive things move. And so even in places that are a little bit more difficult, like we saw things happen in Utah this year that were exciting. We saw in Florida, they didn't pass any anti-LGBTQ plus bills this year. It's their second year in a row. In Arizona, Governor Katie Hobbs, she vetoed every anti-LGBTQ bill that she saw, which was amazing. We made sure, like I said, PFLAG sent her some thank yous for doing that. And I'm excited to say that there were not enough votes to overturn those vetoes. So those bills never saw the light of day. So while we are here seeing doom and gloom, we do have hope. And that's the long game for us, is making sure that our people have hope and that we're building towards something greater, even during these dark times.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. And I love hearing, the people that are out there up front fighting the good fight and winning, right? Not passing the laws, just saying no.
One really cool campaign that we rolled out this year, Texas is in session this year. Texas goes into legislative session every other year. And Texas is really a breeding ground for any kind of horrible anti-LGBTQ bill you can think of. They're inventing new and harmful ways to hurt our community. But what we did is we partnered with a organization that serves the community all across Texas. It's the Transgender Education Network of Texas. We joined forces with them to roll out a billboard campaign. And we put billboards all across the state of Texas, and just saying that controversial slogan of trans people belong in Texas. We made sure that those were in areas that would get a lot of views. And we also made sure that there was one in Austin and the state capitol on a main thoroughfare that goes straight up to the Capitol, so that when transgender people go to the Capitol to talk to their lawmakers, that they feel that message of love and support. And then that lawmakers see that important message that transgender people are supported in Texas and that they should consider those things whenever they go to make laws.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my goodness. You have to send us a picture of those billboards.
Absolutely.
We'll put it out on our social if you have a little snapshot so our listeners can see.
Absolutely. And our goal is to take this campaign, not just have it in Texas, in all the states that are receiving threats to LGBTQ plus folks. Of course, that is a long game, right? But we would love to expand that program.
An important one. Just you're talking about Texas and the conservative states that are really, Christian nationalist states, let's call them. How does PFLAG work with those conservative and uber religious families who are struggling to accept their LGBTQ plus loved one, during this crazy environment that we're living in?
So it's important to know that while now it's, crazy and feels hopeless in some ways, that PFLAG has been around for over 50 years. We've been doing this work for half of a century. And that means we've been finding inroads to those communities and figuring out really how to talk to conservative families, to highly religious families and helping folks find that pathway to allyship. This is, while things are really awful right now, this is not new for us. This is not new to PFLAG. This is not new to the LGBTQ plus community. And you don't have to be in a red or blue state to love your kid, right? And that's what's most important.
Can we put that on a t-shirt, please? Of loving your kids. Doesn't matter what color state you're in. Good grief. I love it. So you had mentioned that Texas, God bless the Lone Star State, is a bit of a breeding ground for what we're fighting against. Who are some of the states or individuals that, like you said, leading with love, that are fighting the good fight, that are creating legislation to protect rights? Like, who can we laud and support for those of us who are fighting the same fight from a legislation standpoint or from an effort standpoint that we can get behind? I think of Cory Booker's kind of historic speech that he just gave, right? That finally eclipsed a long-standing filibuster that never should have been standing before for what it was and his efforts. So, and I'm picking that not as a direct reference, but as an example of who's doing great, what states, what municipalities, and what individuals maybe that we can, again, use as a template to fight the good fight and maybe draw to other places that need that help.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there is one thing that we've seen across the country is a rollback of some of the conversion therapy bans that we were able to pass. Several states have passed legislation that bans conversion therapy, but also we've seen in these times municipal bans still happening. So maybe at the state level, things are happening that are negative. Communities are coming together and saying, we don't want this junk science. We don't want this influencing our communities. That's one thing that I've been really heartened to see. Also in Colorado, we've seen them strengthening their protections. In Utah, they strengthened their conversion therapy ban laws. We're also seeing in places where we haven't normally seen anti-LGBTQ bills introduced are picking up steam. Places like Maine, where the governor spoke out against Trump's trans athlete ban. Now Maine is being targeted by the federal government. And so we need to support that governor who's receiving so much pressure. In fact, now we're seeing legislation that is being introduced there for the first time to ban athletes. And lawmakers are really coming together to figure out how they combat that. And our families are right there, making sure that they're speaking up and speaking out, going to those advocacy days. I think the hearing on their trans athlete ban went into until midnight. So folks in Mainers are saying, no, we don't want to be part of that conversation. We're also seeing in states like Tennessee, people coming out and speaking up. We've got Governor Beshear in Kentucky, who is doing excellent advocacy work. He needs our support. And that's, pretty red area of the country. So there's still people doing good, even in places that you don't think would be possible.
That's such great news, of course. And is one last element that we can leave listeners who are with us today. What 2-3 action items can they walk out of listening to this podcast? Can they hit pause? Can they put down their phone for 5 seconds? If you could pick 2 to 3 things that someone can do today, a U.S. voter, no matter what color of state they live in or where they are, that they could affect the most positive change for the overall LGBTQ plus community, what would PFLAG advocate those steps be?
I want you to go and make a relationship with your elected officials. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. I want them to know your face. I want them to know your story. You can do that. You can find out their information. Go to your Secretary of State's website and find out who represents you and find out more information about them. They often have profiles, or you can look at bills that they've championed, even boards of directors that they sat on. So you can start to find that common ground. I found that even the scariest, most intimidating lawmaker often has something that we can find common ground with. PFLAG is lucky because we're families, and a lot of people, a lot of elected officials have families, they have kids, And we just want people to put themselves in our shoes, to humanize our community. And so building a relationship, going to their town halls, showing up at committee hearings and introducing yourself, shaking their hand. When we build those relationships, we start to move hearts and minds, and that can affect so much change that we don't even know about. So that is one thing that I would love people to walk away and do. And then I want us all to stay tuned. There are things like we've talked about, avalanche of things that are moving so quickly. Do not look away. Make sure that, look away if you need to, right? We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our peace, but you need to know when it's time to take action and you need to show up, whether that's writing a letter, making a phone call. It's so important, even though it might not feel like it with the cards stacked against us. It is so important to keep fighting back. They are betting on us getting complacent. They are betting on us sitting back, getting exhausted, and we cannot fulfill that.
Thank you for leaving us with really incredible action items that are doable. They're doable, right? They don't take a ton of effort, folks, to step in and to step up and to be part of the change and part of this fight that unfortunately we're all, still going through. And for the listeners that want to know more about PFLAG, can you tell us where they can find PFLAG?
Well, of course. You can go to our website, pflag.org. We're also on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Blue Sky. You can find also our chapters. That is the other thing that I really want our folks to do. Find a chapter, join one of our communities online and find that community, find that support during these times, find some joy. That is one of the most radical things you could do right now.
Katie, I want to thank you so much on behalf of Served Up for taking a moment to share your energy, to share the good work that PFLAG is doing. I would love to have you back on in a few months. If you would like to come back on, please know that at any time PFLAG would like to be our guest. This is an open invitation, always.
Thank you. Well, I'll have to have my people talk to your people, but I would love to come back anytime, especially with these campaigns rolling out.
Yes.
There's just so much going on with us.
Yes. And I know our listeners would love for the conversation to continue. So please be our guest. And I want to wish you just some great health and a lot of peace. Cheers to PFLAG and cheers for you for all the great efforts and for doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us and having this great conversation today. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.